Bueno, y ahora vamos a dar un paso más.
Well, now we are going to take another step, and with that we will conclude the section on the interest rate.
La tasa social de preferencia temporal.
We are going to ask what social rates of time preference are directly observable in the market. In the market, only two types of social time preference rates are directly observable. The two are different, but very intimately connected. Here we will deal with the first, the gross market interest rate. This is the interest rate set in the short, medium and long-term loan market. In this small subset I have highlighted here on the board. This rate is directly observable. There is no doubt about it. In fact, just this morning I signed a personal loan agreement, and I will be charged the Euribor plus an additional 2%. Therefore, if today the Euribor is around 2%, then I will be charged 4%. That is the interest rate. So, the first observable figure in the market is the gross market interest rate, which is set in the short, medium and long-term loan market. I would like each of you to think about any loans you may have, a car loan, a mortgage, etc. Well, the gross market interest rate has three components. The first is called the pure or originary rate of interest. It corresponds to the social time preference rate determined in the market. In other words, it reflects the time preference rate of the marginal pairs. Let us suppose it is around 2%. That is, there is a massive influx of people who wish to supply present goods and a massive influx of people who demand them, and the volumes of the two more or less match up at a premium of 2%. The handing over of 2 additional units 1 year from now is sufficient to permit all those who today wish to obtain present goods from savers to do so. Nevertheless, we must add 2 more components. The pure interest rate is only the first component of the gross interest rate, which we pay in loan operations. To the pure interest rate, we must add a risk premium. In other words, the lender estimates the probability that things will go wrong and the borrower will not return the loan, and, depending on that estimate, an additional percentage is added. The market determines such figures based on profiles of borrowers, investment projects, financing projects, in the case of consumer loans, etc. If we suppose that out of every 100 potential borrowers who request loans, 1 will run into hard times and be unable to repay a loan, then we must add a component to compensate for that risk, 1%, for instance. As for the loan agreement I signed this morning, the bank has estimated that out of every 100 borrowers who correspond to my profile, 99 will be able to follow through and return the loan with the stipulated interest at the end of 1 year. But 1 will not. Therefore, to make up for that 1, which it cannot identify, the bank adds an additional component for risk, and to the pure or originary time preference rate of 2%, we will suppose an additional 1% is added. That is the second component. So, now we have 2 plus 1, 3. But there is a third and last component to the gross market interest rate, and it is as follows. The purchasing power of the monetary unit is not stable. It is always changing. What happens if the bank expects that when I repay the loan in 1 year, the purchasing power of my money will be lower? As a matter of fact, you know that last year, 2008, what was the inflation rate in Spain last year? The CPI rose 0.8%. It is not that prices rose an average of 0.8%. It is that the purchasing power of the euro fell an average of 0.8%, grosso modo. Therefore, if I agree to a loan operation, in which I am going to return in 1 year the money I have been advanced, and if the lender expects that I will return it in monetary units with a purchasing power 1% lower, then I will have to add a third component which corresponds to expected inflation. Nevertheless, this is not a very accurate way of expressing this idea, because, as you already know, inflation is growth in the quantity of money, the money supply, or a decrease in the demand for money, and deflation is the opposite. But on a popular level, people confuse the cause with the effects, and they call an increase in prices inflation and a decrease in prices deflation. In reality, what is happening is not that prices are rising, but that the purchasing power of the euro, the monetary unit, is falling. And if the purchasing power of the euro is expected to drop by 1%, because prices in general are going to rise by 1%, then the lender will have to add a third component, which corresponds to expected inflation, which in our example will be another 1%. So, what is the gross market interest rate in our example? This is why we call it the gross rate. Well, we have an originary interest rate of 2%, plain time preference, plus a risk component of 1%, plus a premium of another 1% for the expected drop in the purchasing power of money. So, if we add them up, 2 plus 1 plus 1, 4%, which is precisely what appeared in the agreement I signed this morning. From now on, whenever you enter into a loan transaction, when you agree to the interest rate, pay close attention to the three components it includes. What would happen if, instead of inflation, there were deflation? In other words, if prices fell, though that is not the true essence of deflation. The true essence is a rise in the purchasing power of the monetary unit. If we suppose that in 1 year, when we have to return the loan, our monetary units will have a higher purchasing power, then this third component will be a premium for deflation and will be negative instead of positive. If we expect deflation of 0.5 point, then the premium will be negative. Why? Because we will be returning monetary units that can buy more things.